This is George from High Tech Legion. When you hear people talk about CLCs and performance differences in CLCs, it seems all you ever hear about is radiator size and fans. Which is really kind of understandable given that you're not getting any variables anywhere else. But radiator size and fans aren't the only variables in liquid cooling, obviously. I mean, you have pumps to contend with. You've got cooling blocks to contend with as well. And these are huge parts of what makes up a liquid cooling system. Now, Cooler Master actually came in a bit under the radar and a little bit late to the game in terms of CLCs, but they've offered some of the most complete systems as far as addressing actually all the aspects of liquid cooling in a CLC, as well as the open loop Glacier 240L, which is just an absolute fantastic piece, and the Nepton line, which has the 140XL and the 280L, with the 280L being the best performing CLC you can buy. But of course, you know, the 280 and the 140 are built off the 140 millimeter form factor and can be a little bit of a challenge as far as, getting it to actually fit into a case. So now they're bringing the Nepton line into a more compatible 120 millimeter form factor. And today we're going to get our first look at the Nepton 240M, which is a dual 120 millimeter radiator CLC. Okay, let's start off our look at the Nepton with a look at the box. And as you can see here, and some of the features, of course, typical Cooler Master packaging, black, purple trim up top. Nice look at the 240M right on the front of the box. 5-year warranty shown off right there, as well as maintenance free. Remember, this is a CLC cooler. It's pre-filled, maintenance free, never have to open it, top it off, nothing. It's a completely sealed unit. So you pop it in, it's ready to go out of the box, 5-year warranty, so good to go there. 2 times the surface area on the ultrafine micro channel CPU block. Durable FEP tubing. FEP tubing is really nice in that it doesn't kink, so you do get maximum flow through the tubing because it doesn't kink. It's always open. Going around the back, you do get the measurements on the radiator itself, 27 millimeters thick, standard 240 millimeter radiator otherwise. And of course, we do get a chart here with the performance test, which of course you can completely discount. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Pure copper water block, microchannel technology, factory sealed and filled, durable, powerful water pump, which can effectively move the water through the block. Now let's take a look at the unit itself so we can really get into what this is all about. And first, I'm going to start off with the 2 things people like to look at. Let's take a look at the fans first. This is a new Cooler Master Silencio fan, specifically designed for water cooling. It's got a high 4.8 millimeter H2O static pressure, 800 to 2400 RPM. So you're going to be able to get air through the radiator. That's really one of the important parts. 76 CFM as well, 27 dB. So what it's promising is some really quiet performance, as well as, top of the line performance. Now you can see the blades themselves are very, very large, and actually elongate along the side. This helps with the static pressure. Static pressure is every bit as important, if not more important, in terms of liquid cooling, getting air through a radiator than CFM. And Cooler Master did a really nice job here, as you can see, with the large fins. So hopefully, we're going to get some great performance out of these. The specs look absolutely fantastic on them. Now next, let's take a look at the radiator. Once again, this is kind of a nothing to see here. It's pretty much your standard 240 millimeter aluminum radiator. 24 FPI, 23 to 24 actually, I'm getting on a physical measurement. So 27 millimeters thick. So pretty much what you've been seeing in CLCs all along. So really nothing, fabulous, nothing really, different here. Like I say, very typical. Nicely finished though, with the Nepton 240M logo on the side. Typically we don't see logos on the side. Kind of nice to see. It's going to look good in the case. And of course the FEP tubing comes right to the end. Something we don't see typically is a fill cap, which does say don't take off the fill cap. There's no way to bleed it, after you've taken it off. So really it's, like I say, sealed, filled, ready to go. Just don't mess with it. Next thing, FEP tubing, like we say, doesn't kink. You can actually bend it quite a bit and it stays completely open. So you don't get a kink, you're not going to restrict your water flow in any way, shape, or form. So that's good to see there. Decent length on the tubing, as you see, so you're going to be able to use it in a larger case without too much of a problem. Now, where we're seeing differences in the Nepton is right here, in this piece right here, which is the CPU block and the pump built into one. And yes, it does actually have a light up LED. I know that's very important to some people. So yes, it does light up, has an LED. It's not RGB, unfortunately. Lights up kind of a bluish white with the Cooler Master logo right in the front. As you can see, it's a fairly large pump. Now, there's actually a pretty good reason for that. As we've seen in the past, the performance drops off considerably below half a gallon a minute as far as flow rate. The Cooler Master Nepton pump is the first CLC pump we're seeing that can actually make that flow rate. It's 120 liters per minute, so a little over half a gallon a minute. So you're getting fabulous flow rate. That's about 4 times what you're seeing in most of the other pumps that are out there right now. And you know, flow rate is a huge part of liquid cooling. If it weren't, I mean, you know, we'd see one pump on the market for, you know, Waco loops, and we don't. We see quite a few. And, you know, they're all, you know, trying to keep you actually at about 1 gallon a minute on a larger loop. But in a CLC, you know, half a gallon a minute is actually going to work very, very well. And like I say, this is the first one we're seeing that can actually do that. You know, the more water you get going through, the more water is going to, or the more heat is going to be transferred into that liquid and whisked away from the CPU. So it only makes sense that, you know, more flow is a better thing. Now, moving over to the contact block. As you can see, pure copper contact block, and it's very, very large. Now, that is also a big deal. You know, people say, well, there's only a tiny little hotspot. Yeah, but the larger the contact plate, the more area there is to actually dissipate that heat. So you're not going to get as much of a hotspot in the middle. So that is a pretty big deal. Now, what's going on behind here is even more interesting. You've got a dual skived fin structure, which actually brings down the liquid through the center and then forces it out through the sides. Now, it's about 1.3 times larger, the finned area, than any of the competitors. Larger finned area, more contact with the water, more heat dissipation. So theoretically, it's going to run cooler. You know, no question about that. So Cooler Master, you know, in this little block here, is really attacking two of the biggest problems with CLCs, and you know, the three areas where, you know, performance is held back, and they're really, you know, doing a nice job actually addressing these concerns. So the 240M, you know, rather than going, you know, oh, bigger radiator, more fan, you know, great cheap ways to do things, they're actually doing something with the other two ends. So, you know, we're expecting some really great performance out of the 280M, and I have to applaud Cooler Master for actually taking that stance and actually trying to, you know, improve the rest of the loop in the CLC. Getting into the accessory kit, find your warranty information, multi-language, installation guide, complete layout on the front of all of the parts, and well illustrated, as you see. And it does have separate installation instructions for Intel as well as AMD. Now, this is compatible with Intel 1150 series, so that would be 1150, 55, 56, 1366, 775, as well as 2011, and the AMD FM1, FM2, AM2, AM3. So you've got, you know, good compatibility there. Now, like I say, it is well illustrated, which is a good thing. There are no words in the manual, but pretty easy to follow along. The installation is pretty straightforward. However, it is a little bit, you know, there are quite a few tasks to do, so you do have to follow along with the installation instructions pretty clearly. Included, of course, 2 fans. One thing that we rarely see with any of these CLCs is actually a gasket, so this will stop any vibrations, of course, or I should say not stop, but minimize any vibrations when you're mounting, as well as keep you, if you've got a colored case or whatnot, keep you from getting the case scratched up. So nice inclusion there. One size fits all backplate, and all of your various nuts and bolts to put it in, as well as the AMD and Intel retaining brackets, Y cable for the fans, and a small tube of thermal interface material. Beginning the installation, there is some prep work to be done outside of the case before you begin putting the Nepton 240M into the case. And let's take a look at that right here. First step, obviously, is going to be attaching the fans. Now, I had said this was actually for the case. The gasket is actually for the fans to go onto the unit itself. The fans themselves don't have any vibration dampers, so this is going to act as the vibration damper for the fans. Now, one thing to be concerned about here, when you are putting your fans on, obviously make sure they're facing the right way. You want the back of the fan facing to the radiator itself and set to blow out of the case. So you're going to be running it as a push and exhaust. Now, your fan cable, think about which way you're going to be mounting the radiator itself, and have your cable facing the correct way. So that way when you put it in, cable's going to be in the back or to the side, wherever you like, easiest for cable routing. So definitely something to keep in mind, like I say. So you're just going to lay the fans right in. And they will attach to the radiator using the long fan screws. One nice thing about these, they do have a thumb screw on the end, so easiest thing to do, get it through. It is a little bit more difficult, no question, with the gasket, but get it started. And theoretically, you don't even necessarily have to break out a screwdriver. Once you get the first one started, they'll all fall right into place. And you can just use them as thumb screws. They will tighten to maximum pretty easily. I'm just going to throw a couple screws in here, keep everything in place while we work with this. And your fans are all set up, as you see. Like I said, let's just throw the rest of them in. Then we can move on to the pump itself and getting that ready. Okay, now that I've got the fans in place, I'm going to start the pump. I'm actually doing an Intel install. AMD is going to be exactly the same. You're just going to be using different brackets. The brackets will go on the side with the curve going away from the block, as you see, down and away from the block. It'll fit into place. And line up the two screw holes with the holes in the pump. Small screw goes in. And we'll go down through the pump into the brackets. And we'll then hold the brackets in place. And as you see, obviously you're going to want to do both sides, but bracket goes on quickly and easily. With that out of the way, we're going to prepare the back plate. And like I say, it's a one-size-fits-all backplate, AMD or Intel. As you see, we're doing the Intel like I say. If you're doing AMD, obviously you're just going to use the AMD. Now, it's marked which side is going to face you for Intel or AMD. If you're doing AMD, obviously you want the AMD facing you, and small nut will go through with the pointer to the middle, and the cap will go on. But now, obviously, we're doing Intel. Make sure you want the Intel facing you, the point going into the center, as you see here. The small nut or bolt goes into place. Then the cap, as you can see, is slotted on one side, which will face the bolt and simply goes into place. It slides right over it and locks into place. On the Intel, it does move into 3 positions: outside for 1366, center for 1150 series, inside for 775. So we're going to set them up in the center position, and we're going to move on and put this in the case. With all of our prep work done, we're going to get the 240M into the case. First step, we're going to put the 240M radiator into position. Like so. And using the small screws, go through the case into the radiator. Obviously, you're going to want to put in all 8 or at least 4. I'm just going to put 2 in to hold it for the moment. And as you can see, fits quite nicely. This is actually a Fantex N2 Lux, which has a good amount of headroom. Next, we're going to move to mounting the pump and block. We're going to take the backplate that we prepped with the bolt side out and put it onto the back. And you see the bolts come through into the main chamber of the case. Take the 4 standoffs, and they just screw right on, and you tighten them up by hand. And they do have a stop point. Don't over tighten them. You just want to tighten them until they stop. You just want them snug. You don't want them over tightened. And once they're in place, we're all set to mount the pump and block assembly. Now you notice I've already put the thermal interface material on the CPU itself. You do need thermal interface material. It's not pre-applied to the block. Make sure you take the plastic off the block. Now you see on the standoffs, they are tapped. Got 4 screws on the mounting kit, and the screws will simply tighten into the standoffs. And naturally, you just want to get all 4 started. You don't want to fully tighten them initially. And once you've got all four started, you're going to want to move around in an X pattern. There we go. Start one and tighten here, 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 here until it's fully tight. Now, once you've got it fully tightened up, all that's left is the wiring. First, the pump has a 4-pin. It is actually not a PWM. As you notice, there's only 3 wires. The 4th pin is a dummy. There is no PWM control. You can actually put that to a CPU header. Personally, I prefer to go straight to the power supply, to the 12 volt. The reason for the 4-pin is to try and help you keep from mixing up, putting it on a voltage controlled, system fan header, because PWM will have a constant 12 volt supply. Personally, I'm going to use an adapter to go straight to 4-pin Molex on the PSU, so it's always getting 12 volts. 2 fans. If you've got 2 CPU fan headers, you can go straight to the headers, or you can use the included Y cable going to 1 header. Now, one thing I do want to mention, we ran into a little problem on the install. The standoffs, as you can see, have very difficult to see on camera. Washer on one side, no washer on the other. We did have a spur coming off the side of the standoff, and when it was installed in the case, it actually did cut up the motherboard around the spur, and it actually did wind up grounding out one of the traces on the motherboard, so we actually couldn't get a boot. So be very, very careful when you're putting these in. Make sure you've got the washer side, against the motherboard, and also make sure you don't have any spurs or whatnot. I mean, it flaked right off just with a fingernail, but like I say, it did cut up the motherboard pretty badly. All right, so getting to the part everybody's waiting for, looking at the performance. First, the 4770K stock fans maxed. As you see here, really not any type of match for these the coolers in this test. And, really not stressing any of them at all. The number to look for here, though, if you look at the Nepton 240M, which is a max fan and pump, it's only running at 48 dB, which is just a tick louder than the SwiftTech 220X, and only about 10 dB louder than the CryoRig R1 Ultimate. It's a full 20 dB quieter than the H100i running at max, and it's putting up performance numbers every bit as good. Now, of course, you're not going to be using this kind of cooler on a stock clock CPU. So we're going to bump it up to 4.4 gigahertz, 1.206 volts, and the Nepton 240M puts up a great showing here. As you can see, performance-wise, it falls right in between the NZXT X61 and the H100i. Tick better than the H100i, but again, 20 dB quieter, and only 2 degrees warmer than the X61, and full 8 dB quieter than that. So it's really putting up some very impressive numbers. And the X61 is a 280 millimeter radiator, not a 240. So that added flow and better CPU block is really doing the job here. Now, if we quiet things down a little bit, look at the stock numbers. Really, it stays unaffected, keeping everything below 40 dB. But now, if we want to keep it under 40 dB with the CPU overclocked and, keep it a livable noise profile, you see the Cooler Master, the Nepton 240M, really excels here. It really is unaffected. Since it's so quiet to begin with, you barely have to touch the fan speeds. You lose 1 degree off the top, losing full 9 dB off the sound profile. The Silencio fans really, perform well in this test and performed well all around. At less than 40 dB, as you see, it's, right about with the NZXT 61. You're talking about a 1 degree difference, with a much larger radiator, with something more compatible, in the 240M. So, the showing here is just absolutely phenomenal. I said at the onset that Cooler Master really does an amazing job at looking, at an all-around picture as far as liquid cooling goes. And, I had some expectations going in with the Nepton 240M, simply because I've used the 280L and the 140XL in the past. Now, there were some actual improvements I saw. Apparently, there's a new IC that they're using in the pump. This pump is one of the quietest CLC pumps I've ever heard, if not the quietest. Really, fantastic, and almost no vibration. It's really hard to tell it's on. It barely vibrates whatsoever. So it's really got that going for it. As far as performance goes, that added flow and the better CPU block really added up to some incredible performance. That coupled with the Silencio fans was outstanding. Right now, I mean, in terms of performance, this is going to be the best 240 millimeter CLC you can get straight out of the box. I don't think there's any question about that. Definitely outperforms the H100i, especially at lower noise levels. And even, something that's a little better than the H100i, like the Silverstone TD02 or the Zalman Resonator 3 Dual Max, you've got a situation here where you're going to match that performance, if not a little better, and it's significantly quieter. I mean, there's a huge difference as far as the noise. The Silencio fans, Cooler Master did a beautiful job with them. They move a ton of air, and they are really, really quiet. Now, on the downside, the only thing I could possibly knock, the install, like I say, was a little bit task-oriented. You had a lot of little things to do. But, that one knock really is the standoffs. They really could have been machined a bit better. We had the burr on one. We got a little bit of stripping on another one of them. Just like I say, they could have been a little bit better material. And that really is the only knock on this. But that, can be a pretty big knock if you don't notice something like that burr. So like I say, be very, very careful with the install. Don't over-tighten things, especially on those standoffs. They are a softer metal. Now, as it goes, I'm going to give the Nepton 240M a High-Tech Legion Gold Award. Obviously, would have been an editor's choice had the install been absolutely flawless. But it wasn't, so, going to have to knock it down a little bit for that. Now, if you are looking for a CLC, you're not going to find anything better than the Nepton series. They're just really phenomenal as far as that goes. And, even, noise performance, they keep up with the top-end air coolers. As a matter of fact, the 240M actually kept up really nicely with the larger NZXT X61, which uses a 280 millimeter and is significantly louder. So, like I say, you need to take it all into consideration. When you're putting together something that does liquid cooling, you need enough flow and you need a decent block. And Cooler Master is the one offering that right now. So once again, the 240M, my top pick as far as the CLC goes, and High-Tech Legion Gold Award winner.